USI today. I also extend a warm welcome to other participants and those who are digitally connected with us. In fact, the talk by the CNS today will culminate the series that we started with the address by the CDS, followed by two other service chiefs. And we hope to have Defense Secretary and even Foreign Secretary coming to USI in due course of time. Now, we are very proud of our Indian Navy being the seventh most powerful three-dimensional navy in the world, which is endowed with a legacy of valor, victory, and glory. And it is custodian of India's very rich maritime heritage and traditions that date back to the Vedic period. And we all know that it has a strategic role in enhancing India's national security, deterrence capabilities, and defense diplomacy. It has played a very remarkable role in the victory during the various wars that we fought, as also has been an instrument of national power in strategic posturing and coercion in multitude of strategic security scenarios. Its contributions in the out of area contingencies, HADR missions, international maritime defense cooperation is acclaimed world over. Now, if we look at the present horizon and we zoom out, we know that the center of gravity of the shift in the balance of power is in the Indo-Pacific, and there is contestation over domination of resources, location, global supply chains, disruptive technology, and political influence. China has accorded added focus to modernization of its navy and has adopted a very belligerent posture in the Western Pacific in pursuance of its much touted two ocean strategy. Indian Ocean region, which is co-joined with the Western Pacific, is clearly the center of gravity of China's BRI, where the continental prongs and the maritime Silk Route, they converge, be it Kaikfu, Jiwani, Djibouti, or even your other ports that we say that are there in Pakistan. Now, in the maritime space, in the Indian Ocean region, Indian Navy enjoys an overwhelming competitive advantage that ought to be leveraged to deter and balance China, be it as part of Quad or part of concert of maritime democracies which are evolving. Therefore, be it external balancing, be it being a net security provider, or be it defense diplomacy, Indian Navy is poised to play enhanced role in steering India's transition to a great power status. Therefore, we are eagerly looking forward to the CNS enlightening us on the transformation of Indian Navy and the issues that will probably get covered during his talk and during the question answer session is visualization of the multi-domain warfare in a gray zone environment with special focus on maritime dimension in the Indian context. Then development in regard to the vision which he had enunciated, and that is of having a navy which is combat ready, credible, and a cohesive force effective for mission-based deployment. A force optimization, mitigation of operational voids, and force accretion endeavors. Then the developments in regard to sixth generation weapon systems which are based on disruptive technology, upgradation of infrastructure, especially in our island territories, progress on theaterization, particularly his thoughts on Peninsular Command. Then Indian Navy's response, like we did that Operation Sankalp to maritime terrorism, enhancing maritime domain awareness. And then another initiative which Chief has recently articulated is comprehensive maritime capacity building in partnership with IOR Littorals under the rubric of security and growth for all in the region. We would also be looking at how Indian Navy is bracing itself to play a more effective role in Quad and in bilateral or multilateral cooperation, naval cooperation with other countries. And of course, the hot topic today is indigenization as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat drive. Our Navy has been very good in management of its capital budget. Other uh, services need to take leaf out of their book. And of course, I think there are other initiatives in regard to human development resources and HRD issues and the professional military education related initiatives. So without much ado, let me briefly introduce the chief, and I would only flag few uh, areas or few feathers that are in his cap. First is the die-hard NDA, and we very recently saw him being very inspirational, making certain push-ups. So I think there can't be a better inspiration to young NDA cadets than the Chief of Naval Staff, doing push-ups with them. So that was really, it had very good optics, and I think it had very good feel-good factor. Then, of course, we know that he has held very prestigious command, staff, and instructional appointments. But what is noteworthy here that he has served as a member of Aircraft Instrument Rating and Categorization Board. He's also been Director General of a strategic project, and that is Project C Board, wherein he's in charge of infrastructure development of Navy's Karwar Naval Base. Then he has been the FOC Maharashtra and Gujarat naval areas. He has a very good feel of the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea, having commanded the Western Naval Fleet, being Chief of Staff of Andaman and Nicobar Command, and then being the Commander-in-Chief of the Eastern Naval Command. At the service headquarters, he's held very prestigious appointments, being the DCNS, VCNS, and now the Chief. So what we are going to do after the chief has spoken for whatever time he wishes to, then we will throw the house open to question and answer session, wherein we'll get a cluster of questions from the audience here, and then we'll give an opportunity to the people who are digitally connected with us to ask the questions. So with these words, may I request you, sir, to kindly deliver the talk.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, sir. Director, USI, council members of the USI, respected veterans, participants online, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely happy to be here today, and not only happy, very honored to be here today, because as a think tank, USI has been guiding intellectual thought for more than 150 years. It's the oldest think tank of India. The USI Journal is the oldest surviving journal in Asia, first published in 1871. Therefore, again, it's truly an honor to get an opportunity to speak to all of you at USI today. Recently, my staff chanced upon the first edition of the USI Journal, had an article published in 1870. The title read, and I quote, "Rough Notes on Information, Equipment, and Dispatch of a Force from India for Service Beyond India's Seas." I think it's only befitting that we are talking today and looking beyond the near seas of India into the wider Indo-Pacific at a venue, the USI, that has valued India's maritime orientation for several years. In terms of my talk today, I plan to put it in three parts. The first is give you an overview of the Indo-Pacific and the trends in the Indo-Pacific. Then cover the significance of Indo-Pacific, a few points, not the entire thing, but significance of Indo-Pacific for India, and finally come to the main part, which is the Indian Navy's approach to becoming a key maritime force in the Indo-Pacific. So the first part about the overview and trends in Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific is becoming an increasingly common term in the popular discourse, to a point that it sometimes sounds cliched. But I think it is important to understand the significance of. First significance, it washes the shores of 6 out of the 7 globes continents. It houses about 61% of the global population, 62% contribution to the global GDP, 63% of the island nations of the world it encompasses. The fact that nearly a dozen or so countries have started in the process of publishing their Indo-Pacific strategies or have published their Indo-Pacific strategies points to the fact that it's an extremely important concept. And these countries include the likes of the US, France, Germany, UK, EU, Netherlands, ASEAN, and Japan. Also, the great power competition is being played out fairly vigorously in these waters. And this is a change, because for a change, this is in our backwaters, unlike the previous Cold War that happened earlier. But yet, these statistics often mask some of the broader trends and imperatives that are relevant to Indo-Pacific. And I'll offer 3 insights from my perspective. Just like the 3 primary colors, which will add different hues to our discussions today. First, I think the value of the Indo-Pacific lies not in the constituent area, but in the core underlying idea itself. When you look geographically or cartographically, you can divide an area either as a physical area, which is based on natural geographic demarcations like land, water, mountains, deserts, seas, oceans, or you can have a political map where you look at political boundaries, countries, continents, and islands. But I think looking at this area as a mental map and imagining a space that goes beyond this cartographic dimension to a conceptual essence is, I think, the most important element of Indo-Pacific. It is an idea, time has come. It is an idea that is the center of gravity of global interaction. So this is one thought I thought I'd leave with you. That is why boundaries, when people talk of boundaries, it's not that important to define Indo-Pacific. Whether it is from the east coast of Africa, being east coast to eastwards, or from 68 degrees east, as the United States sees it, nor is the nomenclature that important. Whether you call it Indo-Pacific, or like China and Russia like to call it, or ASEAN like to call it Asia-Pacific to describe it, nor is the genesis that important. That it was coined by Shinzo Abe, or it was popularized or mainstream by President Trump, or like Sarangi has written in his book, right? It was a couple of centuries old. It is not that important. What is important that it remains an expression or an idea that defines temporary global thought and attention. I think India has a privilege of being at the core of this defining idea of our time. Second thought on Indo-Pacific is the fact that is the maritime orientation of the Indo-Pacific. This is something that we cannot lose sight of. Mackinder spoke about the heartland theory, which was also a conceptual demarcation, just like the Indo-Pacific, but it was land-oriented. It prioritized competition, control, conflict. Indo-Pacific, by contrast, is maritime by its very nature. And as the saying goes, seas unite, they don't divide. Given this predominant maritime orientation, there is a natural tendency for nations to engage, collaborate. Because the seas are a lifeline of global trade and prosperity, Nearly 50% of global trade passes through the Indo-Pacific. Most nations within and beyond the Indo-Pacific have a core interest in keeping the Indo-Pacific free for commerce. That is also why concepts such as like-minded partners, free, open, inclusive seas, these have gained currency, concurrent with the growing relevance of the idea of Indo-Pacific. In fact, Honorable Prime Minister Modi calls the Indo-Pacific a natural region where the destinies of constituent nations are deeply interlinked. Here again, I feel India is fortunate. We blessed with an excellent maritime geography. We are the subcontinent juts into the Indian Ocean, large the coastline, number of ports, island territories. I think we are well suited to harness the overall maritime orientation of the Indo-Pacific. Having said these two things, but let us remember that maritime orientation itself, by and itself, does not assure any global conciliation and consensus. You all know that some of the intense conflicts in history have been waged through maritime geography. It was the Athens and Sparta, whether it was Britain and France, or the Pacific campaigns of World War II. So we have to be aware of the evolving nature of the competition and contestation in the region. And this is the third facet of Indo-Pacific that which would shape the Indo-Pacific. What we are seeing today is some countries or states applying a very land-centric approach and a territorial kind of mindset to the basic idea of global commons, attempting to seek greater domination and control. And therefore, the increasing challenge to international rules, regulations, reinterpretation of conventions, which has the danger of converting the global commons as we have to which we have prospered into contested seas. Or if I Hugo Grotius's mare liberum to mare clausum. This is our danger that we face today. And as the basic precepts of the maritime orientation of Indo-Pacific are challenged, competition in the Indo-Pacific is becoming more diverse. You are having levers of diplomacy, commerce, ideology, values, science and technology, everything apart from military being applied. There is also a day-to-day competition for influence, all around, leverage, geostrategic space that is increasingly being witnessed in Indo-Pacific. So when I talk about this jostling that is happening on a day-to-day basis, I would like to introduce a term which many of you would know, but the term called, there's a situation of it's a complex competition continuum that is shaping the Indo-Pacific. And there are three elements to this competition continuum. We are transitioning from a period of busy peace. Earlier, your time, many of you veterans are here, and my time, we were used to this idea of there'd be war, when we would subjugate the enemy, and there'd be peace when we'll prepare for war. But this is more diffuse now. Now, actors are using diverse playbook of actions and counteractions within this competition continuum on a day-to-day basis, and many times remaining below the threshold of conflict. Second aspect of competition continuum is that we have been so far used to a very linear escalation ladder, but this is not so in this competition continuum. The CDS of United Kingdom, he has described this escalation ladder not as an escalation ladder, but an interwoven spider's web of escalation, where an action in one domain or escalation in one domain can be responded in another domain. For example, if there is territorial salami slicing, it could be responded by economic salami slicing, be responded by diplomatic salami slicing, as we have seen in Galwan and as we are seeing now after the COVID situation. Therefore, what this implies, the second point, implies that we need tighter integration of all sources of national power. I'll come to that later. It is an imperative if you want to compete in this competition. Thirdly, as far as competition continuum is concerned, we have to face the fact that autocratic powers enjoy a natural advantage here. They are able to apply all their leverages in a focused manner, something that one of the writers termed as sharp power, to undermine and weaken the very sources of power of democracy. Democratic nations have a free media, have an open social media, election processes, financial institutions, etc. This become these strengths of democracies can be turned by sharp power into weaknesses. Aim would be to work from inside out in a nation rather than from outside in. This is what we are used to traditionally of defending our borders. So I think in sum, what the Indo-Pacific brings, whilst it brings a lot of the global commons, prosperity, cooperation, etc., it also brings with it attendant and evolving challenges where the rules of the game are changing. And we need to exist and compete in this evolving paradigm. There are three trends that I've just spoken about on the Indo-Pacific. I end this section, and I would like to start with the second section, which is the significance and challenges for India. And I'll articulate this in five uh, uh, elements. We approach India and the Indo-Pacific. First is economic, which is apparent to all of you. You are aware of it, but I'll quickly list out some facts. 7 out of 10 export destinations of India are in the Indo-Pacific. 90% of our trade, as you all know, by volume, 70% by value, is transported by the seas. 4/5 of India's oil, half of India's natural gas and LPG is imported from Indo-Pacific nations. And therefore, India's trade and economic partnerships and hence prosperity are deeply integrated with the maritime domain of the. When you talk of culture, India's cultural and civilizational footprint is deeply embedded, whether it's through the Indo-Pacific, whether it's the eastern coast of Africa or East Asia. And add to that, very existing diaspora, which is all spread across this Indo-Pacific, is an important factor. And these links were carried outward in the past to the Indo-Pacific are important linkages and leverages for India's soft power. We apply soft power in the Indo-Pacific. In terms of future of India, we must remember that India is an aspirational power. We have 1/5 of humanity, young population. We aim to be a $5 trillion economy in a few years. Therefore, a key national interest for India is to assure the prosperity and of India. The only way to do this, to my mind, is to move outwards, spread outwards, seek opportunities in the world. You cannot get prosperity by sitting within your boundaries. Here, the Indo-Pacific provides us several opportunities and an underlying conceptual glue to engage closely and proactively. And finally, in terms of geostrategy, to my mind, Indo-Pacific offers really an opportunity for us to break out of this mold of land-centric and border-focused nations that hitherto has been our dominant approach. The border-focused approach limits us truly harnessing our fullest potential, expanding our geostrategic gaze and influence to the wider globe. The waters of Indo-Pacific offer such an opportunity. Move outwards and seek India's rightful place in the Committee of Nations or in global affairs. I'll quote Honorable External Affairs Minister in his book, India Way, which you all must read. I quote, "The real obstacle to India's rise is not anymore the barriers of the world, the dogmas of Delhi." I think the Indo-Pacific offers us prospect, a canvas on which we can sketch our future progress. To my mind, therefore, Indo-Pacific really is India's theater of opportunity. So, having spoken about the importance of Indo-Pacific to India, I'll come to the final section, which is the India's approach as to become a key maritime force in the Indo-Pacific. Given the maritime orientation of Indo-Pacific, navies are extremely important. Will have to play an important role in meeting national goals, and Indian Navy is no exception. When I will talk about Indian Navy's efforts, I'll put them in 5 lines of effort. Come to mind how the Navy is working to further India's interest in the Indo-Pacific. The first line of effort is very inherent to maritime operations, which is collaboration and cooperation with like-minded partners for comprehensive maritime security. If we are to secure India's interests and region's interests, safe and secure seas become imperative. That is a given. And when you look at the expanse of, I will not talk of Indo-Pacific, I talk of only Indian Ocean region. It is 20 times the landmass of India. We recognize that no one can do it alone. Therefore, we need to collaborate with like-minded partners. And in this endeavor, India is guided by a overarching concept of or vision of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region. Act East goes beyond Look East and includes security and widens the scope to the Indo-Pacific. Neighborhood First, which encapsulates our impetus to a well-knit neighborhood. And why a well-knit neighborhood is important? Because if there are fissures, even in your neighborhood, they can be exploited. So as part of the broader Government of India direction, the Navy is working with like-minded navies, especially littorals, strengthen something we call the collective maritime competence. This is an important mission statement for the Navy. We want to prove or strengthen the collective maritime competence of our region. Because each Navy and each nation, I'll talk of Indian Ocean region, brings certain unique capabilities to the table, whether it is expertise in certain kind of warfare, whether it's intelligence, whether it's technology, whether it's their geographical location or assets. So we can harness all these to tackle the common challenges together by creating a participative, inclusive ecosystem rather than a prohibitive, elitist one. This is what I have been doing as a chief the last 2.5 years. Forging collaborative frameworks was also an important part of strengthening collective maritime competence. And of course, if we've had the IONS or Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, which is only slightly over a decade old, but has achieved significant strides in promoting collaborative engagements in the Indian Navy has led the formulation of the IONS HADR guideline for IOR littoral, which has been accepted by all members. We also working on information sharing and interoperability. Large ambit, or if you get all the IONS nations on board, it will be a great achievement with collective maritime competence. We have started the Goa Maritime Conclave a couple of years back. It's a constructive dialogue with the closer neighborhood and outcome oriented, low hanging fruits, smaller groups, getting focused consensus. So this is some of the work we are doing. And there's a linked thing about collaboration and cooperation is developing interoperability with other large and developed navies. Why do I need this? First, why do we need interoperability? First, because we have to help, it will help us collectively respond to a situation when needed. Secondly, it helps us learn best practices through exercises and engagement. And towards this, we are coordinating operations with regular navies and exercising often with like-minded navies. In fact, I've been discussing with other chiefs shift from interoperability, something called interchangeability, wherein our assets could even embark, our people could go on each other's assets. Our assets like helicopters could embark each other's ships. So in sum, what Navy is aiming to do is not, as the director mentioned, be a net security provider, but I think a little softer approach of being a preferred security partner in the Indo-Pacific. Aim is to build trust with like-minded navies. Ties do not develop overnight. Trust cannot be surged. This is as far as the first line of effort, which is collaboration and cooperation, go. Second line of effort is readiness to operate in this competition continuum that I spoke about and to win the peace on a day-to-day basis. For this, first start point is get the conceptual clarity on how to operate in this kind of a continuum. You know, as men and women in uniform, we are managers of violence. We need to use the tools at our disposal to offer solutions tailor-made to the situation. In the past, we've been accustomed to this thinking of conflict and peace as binaries, like I explained to you. And this all or nothing approach, confronted with something which doesn't fit into either, is, however, will not work. Now, we in the Navy cannot remain tied to some narrowly focused strategy. We need to develop tools and support systems, create options for day-to-day busy peace competition. In sum, I think we have to rethink how we handle future challenges. This is exercising our minds these days. Of course, here I do not imply that we do not train for an all-out conflict. Must, we do. But we also have to add this additional skills and concepts to our bag of options. Critical element of winning the peace on a day-to-day basis is shaping the environment. Here, I think leveraging foreign cooperation is key. We do not want to be people who react. Things go above, the water rises above the neck. We have to shape the environment day-to-day basis. We have to be, for that, you have to leverage foreign cooperation, be credible partners, enhance our engagements, do the heavy lifting in the neighborhood, play a participative role in common challenges, build trust through participating in HADR, piracy, drug smuggling, training, not participating in drug smuggling, but anti-drug smuggling, giving training, capacity building, etc. We have to be the first responders for littorals, remain forward deployed and present to assist. Here again, in this task, we are geographically blessed. We can leverage our central location in the Indian Ocean. At the moment I'm talking about Indian Ocean, because our location aids reach and sustenance the IOR. Because being there is half the battle. For example, when our ships happened to be off Mozambique when Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique, and we were the first there to provide relief, that makes a difference. Towards this, the Navy is pursuing standing reciprocal logistics arrangements with other countries so that our ships can go and fuel there, standing arrangements for operational turnaround for specific ports. This is how we intend working, leveraging foreign cooperation, shape the environment. Third line of effort, to build maritime domain awareness and understanding. I told you earlier that there's this Indian Ocean region or Indo-Pacific is huge, massive expanse. There are complexities there, traffic, jurisdiction, flags, activities that happen there, very complex environment. And one thing we have realized, that we don't want to get surprised in maritime domain. So this information is key. Because information leads to awareness, awareness leads to understanding. So we have got a two faceted approach. One is for internally. Internally, what we have done, internally meaning within the country, we have created something called the Information Management and Analysis Center at Gurgaon, the IMAC. What it's doing is maintaining an amalgamated picture with artificial intelligence based management software, keeping track, cohesing the information from all sources and putting them to you cohesing data and presenting you as information. We are looking to expand this. Presently, we have Coast Guard, Marine Police, and a few other agencies, but we want to expand this to 7 ministries and 15 agencies in a project called National Maritime Domain Awareness, currently with the Government of India. With them. Externally, what we are doing, because of we've got to keep track of the Indo-Pacific, we have formed the Information Fusion Center of the Indian Ocean region, where we collaborate and together pool operational information in concert with friendly foreign countries. This IFC IOR, as we call it, has links with 21 countries, 24 maritime security centers. We also have 6 international liaison officers. I have been told 3 more are joining from Seychelles, Mauritius, and Myanmar, and 3 more will join this fortnight. The aim is that the information can be pooled, make the whole more than the sum of its part, and this is at a very low cost because technology is. A linked element to maritime domain awareness is persistent surveillance. Here we are leveraging assets like with long legs such as the P8I, the HAIL, MAIL, and the satellites. Mission-based deployments, which our ships are undergoing, many of you would know, but mission-based deployments involve ships being positioned at various choke points in the Indian Ocean region, help in creating this maritime domain awareness. So eventually, aim, leverage our central location, geography, as also our software prowess to get this desired understanding and a maritime domain. The fourth line of effort Navy is doing is to coordinate efforts across the Government of India stakeholders who are involved with the maritime issues, so that we are ready, like I spoke about the escalation and being a spider's web, that we are ready against across multiple levers and domains. Because that is where been working hard, Navy has been working hard to break silos in the maritime domain. It's an important part of this. Continuously working to bring together stakeholders in the maritime, and therefore you may have heard of it, National Maritime Security Coordinator, which we are planning to put in place, will be a step in direction. Aim is to develop something called the integrated maritime capability to respond, to allow response options across varied situations. The final line of effort I'd like to discuss is effective long-term perspective planning. It's extremely crucial in a resource-constrained environment. Develop options across the spectrum of competition and conflict. When I talk of perspective planning, the focus is to develop a future-proofed, balanced fleet with blue water and brown water capabilities. I'm stressing on capabilities, not platforms. A lot of emphasis is being laid by the Navy on the unmanned systems in a big way. Our roadmap for the next 10 years is already underway. And we are looking also to maximize the capability of each platform through force multipliers, for instance, networking seamlessly, leveraging information technology and communications. Because we realize today we are at the inflection point of the industrial age and the information age. You have to move fast. In the information age, you have to move much faster than you have to move in the space, cyber, other segments. There our aim is to do more, and we have limited capability here. Overall, acquisition process has undergone a significant change with the DMA coming. Earlier, each service would make their perspective plans, and they used to be collated the LTIPP or long-term integrated perspective plan. Today, we're doing it the other way around. We're sitting together, going through a system called the ICADS, the Integrated Capability Development System, which then will feed into the maritime capabilities perspective. And in doing all this capability development, we remain firmly focused on Atmanirbharta, partnering with the industry. This is a key result area for all of us now in the Ministry of Defense. As you know, the Navy is the first service to have got AONs to the partnership model. We will give Philip to the private industry, and we are trying to pursue this rather complex process to fruition. We also, now you would also know that Indianization has been a crucial element of Navy's endeavors, and we owe it to the veterans and predecessors sitting here. We built our first indigenous warship at the same time that the Ambassador car was first getting manufactured in India. And since then, float, move and fight components getting a lot of focus, unwavering focus. So all in all, capability accretion has to keep pace with the changing nature of threats and galloping technology, and this will remain a challenge for us. I'd like to conclude, just rattle out some of the points that I've just covered. Indo-Pacific lies at the very center of, is an idea which lies at the very center of global engagements and changes. Its value comes from the underlying idea, contemporary relevance, and maritime orientation. At the same time, Indo-Pacific is witnessing new forms of competition and contestation. And in many ways, we are living amidst a competition continuum, changing the rules of the game of geopolitics. For India, which is blessed by geography and compelled by imperatives, Indo-Pacific forms a theater of opportunity must harness to the fullest. This endeavor, the Indian Navy remains an important contributor, prioritizing collaborative engagements with like-minded partners, like I mentioned, ensuring maritime domain awareness to tackle any challenges, managing capability development in a resource-challenged environment. Finally, readiness to tackle the ongoing competition continuum, conceptually and in terms of capability, also breaking silos in the maritime domain remains crucial, main crucial priorities for us. That I finished. Thank you for your patience.